Well, it looks like the world is finally going to get the tennis fantasy that we've all been yearning for. One could say the final fantasy. Because we've seen Rafa and Roger play in the Australian Open final. We've seen plenty of French Open finals. We've seen 3 exciting Wimbledon finals. But not only have we not seen a US Open final, we've never even seen a Roger versus Rafa US Open match. Period. My question right now is, which one, Roger or Rafa, is more likely to screw it up? Yes, it's that magical time where we get the final 8 men's players at the final Grand Slam of the year, and everyone's 2 favorites are still very much alive. And today on the show, lucky you, I will tell you, I will use my big tennis brain and predict the future and tell you exactly how the final matches will play out. Also, what the heck is wrong with Sasha Zverev? What happened to Marin Cilic? We sure did see a lot of double faulting to have your serve broken. We'll talk about what went wrong for today's losers. Also, Sasha Zverev, after losing, throws shade at the person he hates the most, fellow next-gen Stefanos Tsitsipas. And finally on today's show, was it fair to boo Djokovic? I found a couple articles that kind of did something I was thinking about doing weeks ago, months ago. 2 ways to phrase it. Why do they not love Novak Djokovic? Or why do they hate him? We'll talk about that at the end of the show. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. I still have plenty of energy, even though it is quite late. 10:49. Taylor Townsend and Bianca Andreescu just started their match. Let's get into it. We saw Rafa Nadal tonight hit more unforced errors than usual, more double faults than you would expect. But the first serve was so very good. Take a look at these images. They showed how before the tournament even started on ESPN's coverage, Rafa was out doing the hit the can of tennis balls, although it looked like they had some cones out there. Rafa was working on doing what Roger Federer does so well, hitting the corners with your serve, spot serving. Then they showed how Rafa, throughout his matches, had been hitting those spots more effective than ever. And they even compared to last year's U.S. Open, showing, I believe this is, put this on the screen, I believe this is the deuce court. I believe this is the deuce court, and if it's deuce court for a lefty for Rafa, it's like when a righty hits the ad court flat out wide. You just let that wrist kind of flop through it. You flop through the back like a hammer hitting the nail, and you pound that thing flat out wide. Well, Rafa was hitting this serve very well tonight, and they even showed in the graphic how much better he's hitting it closer to the corner than last year. Another interesting graph, take a look at this on the screen. What happens after the serve? Rafa taking the ball early, mostly making it a forehand, and striking first. All really good signs for the King of Clay on a hard court. And remember, I just want to offer a slight caveat for the Rafa fans out there. Remember, Rafa did this very well at the Australian Open this year. But when he got to Novak Djokovic, when he got to a player that could really bother him, he abandoned the game plan. And Rafa, if he reverts back to the safer way to play for him, what's more comfortable, what feels like he's on a clay court, you could say. If Rafa starts to fall back and give up real estate, he could find himself in trouble. And you saw in the second set, Marin Cilic hitting his forehand like it was 2014 when he won the U.S. Open. Maybe the rest of his game wasn't as good as 2014, but there were flashes, especially in that second set, where the backhand very good too, but the forehand especially on fire. We saw Rafa a little rattled here. We saw Rafa very far back, so far back you couldn't see him at times on the return of serve, especially I didn't understand why on the second serve. He started moving in on the second serve later, and that obviously was a smart move. But let me make it very clear for those of you out there, and I've seen people say, like, well, Rafa's going to kill Federer if they meet. Rafa's going to win this thing. Now Djokovic is out. Rafa's already won it. I've heard that. I've seen that in tweets. It's out there in the stratosphere. But there are some players left in the draw who can go so hard at Rafa, he may abandon the play more aggressive attack game plan. The serves might start not going in. Rafa did lose in fact, let me bring up the stats right now, put this on the screen. Rafa with 57% first serves in. The way Rafa's serving so aggressive, we will take that. If you are a Rafa fan, you will take that. But that's 57 for the whole match. There were dips at times. And if somebody is putting even more pressure than Marin Cilic was able to, Marin Cilic, major issues, confidence issues, kind of like Sasha Zverev. We saw both of them really scaredy cat looking second serves. Sasha Zverev was hitting second serves in the 60s, very regularly in the 70s and 80s, but in the 60s at times. If that may not have been the case tonight, I think Marin Cilic could have done even more damage, and I think maybe we could have seen Rafa kind of abandon the game plan, lose confidence in the way he's playing right now. So the big question is, who's left in the draw that could actually do that to Rafa? Well, lucky for him, it looks like nobody in the bottom half put it on the screen. First up, who's next? Diego Schwartzman. So if we look at the stats, let's go straight to the stats, actually. Put these on the screen. 17 double faults from Sasha Zverev. 40% win on return from Sasha Zverev. If Sasha Zverev takes care of serve, winning 40% on return, that's enough for him to win the match. But he doesn't win the match because 49% win on return, Diego Schwartzman. That is unsustainable. Diego Schwartzman, 34 winners on 43 unforced errors. I believe Rafa was something like 38 winners on 24 unforced errors, a healthy number for Rafa. Sasha Zverev, 43 winners on 65 unforced errors. Sasha Zverev did not have a chance. He beat himself. He was his own worst enemy. Schwarty D played well enough, played very well at times, had plenty of stretches where he wasn't playing very well. There was a lot of ugly tennis today, all around, except for Rafa, of course, who was pretty phenomenal, although a lot of unforced errors from Rafa. Again, if somebody, not Cilic, or if Cilic could have served better, could have applied more pressure on Rafa, all of those unforced errors, the score line, if Rafa really felt like he was in danger of losing control of the match, things could have been very different, I think. So don't be quick to say Rafa's going to win this thing. There's a lot of work to do. I think he gets through Diego Schwartzman because Rafa is going to be able to hold serve better than Sasha Zverev did against Diego. And anything else on the stat sheet here we should look at, by the way? Real quick, Diego winning 65% on first, 52 on second. And a ton of trips to net, 68%, 22 out of 34. One of the things I tweeted during the match, I tweeted a couple things. Sasha Zverev will always remember 2019 as the year of the double fault. Hopefully he can correct that. And another thing I wrote, if Diego Schwartzman is beating you at the net, you're in big trouble. So Diego Schwartzman, I don't think he'll be able to stop Rafa. But what about Matteo Berrettini or Gael Monfils? Well, Matteo Berrettini is looking pretty good. And he's looking a lot like what we saw him do on grass when, where did he win in Stuttgart this year? He had a decent run at Halle. And then, of course, he fell on his face trying to run around his backhand, which he loves to do, on a very sharp, deep, knifed slice from Roger Federer, and he ends up slipping and falling. Berrettini today, 7 aces, 37 winners on 35 unforced errors. I just don't think he is going to be steady enough if he were to get through Monfils. I don't think he will do that. I think Monfils is playing well enough that we will get a Rafa and Monfils good semifinal. I think Monfils is playing well enough that he will be able to challenge Rafa. But again, I see Rafa coming through in 4 sets, even over a Monfils playing well. Maybe a 5-set epic with Monfils. It could happen. The big thing about Berrettini for me today with Rublev was just, Rublev was really sticking to the game plan of, I want to go my inside-out forehand to your backhand. And Matteo Berrettini, he loves to hit inside-in forehands. So when you back Matteo Berrettini into his backhand corner, he says, I don't like my two-hander too much. I don't want to hit it. I want to run around it and pop it straight up the line. If you don't understand this, put a tennis court on the screen. This is basically if Matteo is on the bottom of your TV, he is running to his left and then pounding the forehand up the left side line where you would hit a backhand up the line. But Berrettini is going to hit a forehand up the line. He's not going to hit a forehand inside in up the line. He's not going to hit very many backhands up the line. Berrettini able to hang in those rallies. As soon as Rublev got him in the position he wanted him, able to block backhands if he had to hit a backhand or slice them cross court and wait until there was a ball that he could rip inside in. And Rublev so eager to get into his backhand corner and hit inside out forehands to just pepper the Berrettini backhand. That was the game plan. And he never broke away from that game plan, despite being burned up the line inside in over and over again. And then there were other times where he would start to move over and Berrettini would hit the inside-out forehand the opposite direction, and Rublev had no idea what to do. So it will be fun to see Monfils actually run down. That's the thing. Rublev couldn't get to those when Rublev is moved out. If Rublev is moved out into the backhand corner, going cross court with the backhand, and then that inside-out forehand or inside-in forehand comes, he couldn't get to those. But when the inside-in forehand comes flying up the line, Monfils is going to get to a lot of those. So it's going to be fun just to see that, just to see how those points play out. I give Berrettini a chance. I think it's going to be a brutal match. I think it's going to hurt both of them because Rafa is most likely going to be able to come through Diego Schwartzman in 3 sets, maybe 4 if Schwarty fights really hard and drags the thing out. I could see it happening, but again, it's going to be inevitable feeling just like with Marin Cilic tonight. Last thing before I crumple up stat sheets here, Rafa Nadal winning an incredible 46% on return against Marin Cilic. I mean, holding Cilic, I understand Cilic's second serve, he's not feeling good about it, just like we saw with Sasha Zverev. But to hold Cilic to 59% on the first serve, and Cilic could have served better on the first serve, but he still hit plenty of quality first serves that Nadal was able to. I mean, I do like Nadal getting way back like a clay court on that first serve return, just getting into these points because he knew he was going to beat Cilic in most of the rallies, unless Cilic just absolutely stepped in and ripped like he did in the second set. But very hard to sustain that kind of play. Final predictions for the bottom half. When Berrettini served for sets, when Berrettini played in the tiebreaker, there were times where he looked a little nervous. He looked a little shaky. There were times where he couldn't put away the final shot, although he hit tons of great shots. Monfils, I believe, if he keeps the belief and if he serves big enough and protects his own serve, I believe Monfils will have plenty of opportunities to break Berrettini. And I think Monfils will get enough balls back in play to keep forcing Berrettini to hit the extra shot. He will have his chances to win. It all comes down to, does Monfils serve well, take care of his own serve, and stay positive throughout the match? I think he's at a place in his career where he's ready to get this win and go into a semifinal again. Monfils gets through in 4 sets. My prediction there. Rafa Nadal, I'm going to go with 3 sets over Schwarty D. And if we get Monfils and Rafa, I could see that being a brutal long match, but again, probably 4 sets, kind of like the match with Cilic tonight. A couple things real quick before we move on. I got some match notes I took during the match. Just listen to Sasha Zverev. We've seen this all year, but when I write these things, I want to say them. 3-2 up a break in the third set. Sasha Zverev hits his 13th double fault. Later, he hits a second serve, 68 miles per hour. Break point down. He challenges a first serve. That was obviously out because he's so desperate not to hit a second serve. He double faults. I believe this is also the third set. Sasha serving 4-5, 15-30. He hits an ace. But no, Schwarty D challenges. It's out. He hits a second serve. It's a double fault. 15-40. Next thing you know, he's down 2-1. And finally, a Sasha Zverev moment. 66 mile per hour second serve, double fault to go down. Love 4 in the final 4th set. And final thing from my match notes. Mark Woodford commentating on ESPN3 online pointed out it's alarming, not just the many ways that Sasha Zverev is double faulting. He said with Pete Sampras, you would get double faults because he was going very big, aggressive on the second serve. And those would tend to be long. But Sasha Zverev, he's missing in the tram lines, wide of the tram lines. That's the doubles alley. He's missing in the bottom of the net. He's missing long. He's missing everywhere. And the 66 mile per hour second serve double fault? I mean, we already knew this, but guy's got no confidence in his second serve. Sasha Zverev, some negative. Then we'll look at the schedule tomorrow, talk a little bit about tomorrow's matches. Then we'll go through some Djokovic stuff, and then we'll get out of here. World number 6, Alexander Sasha Zverev believes the rising stars of the men's game needs to follow the example set by the likes of Roger Federer instead of being caught up in controversy. So he kind of trashed his whole next gen a little. It wasn't the worst stuff he said, but the stuff he said about Tsitsipas was a little. He doesn't like him. We'll just say that. But let me point out, saying, we all need to be like Roger Federer. Well, Sasha Zverev, he did get in trouble for hitting a ball towards his box. He was mad at his box. Smacking a ball towards his coaches. He got a warning. Then he lost a point, and it was 40-15 Schwarty D serving, so it was game. This one, I believe, he was yelling and cussing at his box. And I didn't see this, but he obviously did something bad at that moment. And I heard somewhere that we didn't get enough middle fingers at the U.S. Open this year. Sasha Zverev gave the middle finger to his own coaching box. I heard that. I did not see that on TV. I saw someone tweet that, so I can't confirm that's true, but geez, if that's true. And either way, smacking the ball towards his box, was he trying to hit him out? That was the commentators. That's not like anything made up there. So here is the one. You know what? I have the clips. Just take a listen for yourself. This is what Sasha Zverev had to say. He talked a little bit about Kyrgios. He talked a little bit about Medvedev saying, well, Medvedev's winning, and when you're winning, people don't care. He's right about that. But listen to what he said about Tsitsipas, as if Tsitsipas ain't hurting enough with his back-to-back first-round exits at majors. Take a listen to this.
I don't want the next generation to be known for that. I think a lot of the time Tsitsipas gets over the line with changing his shoes 15 times in a tournament or going to the bathroom in the middle of the set. Stuff like that, is let your tennis racket talk for you, kind of. You don't need to do things to distract the opponent and kind of try to win that way.
I don't like that kind of stuff either, but I don't know if we definitively know that Tsitsipas was trying to beat his opponent with distractions. All right, enough of that. Tomorrow, Arthur Ashe, 12 noon, Elina Svitolina, girlfriend of Monfils, plays Jo Konta. I think Svitolina comes through. Followed by Wawrinka and Medvedev. I think Fed fans need to feel really good because Federer is going to get through Dimitrov. He's after Serena, 7 p.m. on Ashe at night tomorrow night. I think Federer comes through Dimitrov in 3 sets for obvious reasons. I talked about it enough in the last video. And I think Wawrinka and Medvedev are going to have a battle. I feel like Medvedev may possibly run out of gas, and that's why I'm going to say Wawrinka in 4 sets, just because Medvedev's played so much the last couple of months. But either way, whoever comes out, I think it works so nicely that they're going to be really battling hard and playing a Roger Federer who's going to be very fresh and very confident. So will we get the tennis fantasy? I think so. I think we finally get our Federer-Nadal U.S. Open final. And everyone should be very thrilled for that. But hey, it ain't over yet. A lot of stuff can happen. And if anyone is going to screw this up, it's going to be Roger. You got to remember 2014, when Djokovic went out, Federer had to thought, I'm going to win it. And then he gets destroyed by Marin Cilic, playing a lot better then than now, but still. There is an element here where Federer thinks, oh, wow, Djokovic is gone. Now it's mine. And he gets a little nervous and could lose to a Medvedev or Wawrinka. But it ain't going to happen against Dimitrov. He's going to be feeling very good against Grigor. All right, last things. Let's talk about, this is from Last Word on Tennis, Damian Kust, the Kustmeister, who we featured his tweet in the last show, I think. He's saying why it was wrong to boo Novak Djokovic. And I'm going to tell you that most of this is pretty good. Argument 1, left shoulder, he's playing with his right hand. Okay, in tennis, everything's connected. When you throw your serve up, if your left shoulder's jacked up, that's gonna mess up the rhythm on your serve. Djokovic has a 2-hand backhand. That's going to screw that up. Everything. If one shoulder is jacked up, it's going to throw off your balance and your feel on every shot pretty much. So, not a good argument. Argument 2, you retired back in 2008 due to heat. Career retirement slam, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll put this on the screen because this is true. Djokovic is now retired a lot, and he's retired from every major at least once. He has the retirement slam. Now, you should be careful with injury. I mean, Djokovic clearly, the elbow issue, 2017, 2018, clearly Djokovic regrets playing with the elbow issues he had before, and that's part of why he was gone for 2017, and he doesn't want to do it again, and you can't blame the guy. He's smart. He gave a 2 really good sets to the crowd. I don't think it was fair to boo Djokovic. But if you want to point out that Roger Federer, and that's the next one here, and Djokovic is mostly retired for good reasons. Obviously, when he was younger, maybe you could make a case against him then that some of those were Bush League. Argument 3, Roger has never retired midway through the match. That's the right mentality. Roger's never retired from any match, period. And Damian makes some case, well, really, we should say that Federer is just kind of lucky because he never gets injured. And I just want to say, hey, Damian, don't forget that Federer played through the final in Canada against Sasha Zverev with a back injury. And, he could barely hit the serve anymore. It was pretty obvious he had plenty of reason to stop playing. And the crowd definitely would not have booed him. But he played through the pain, and maybe Djokovic could have finished the match. You could make a case. Some people are saying Djokovic should have finished. It wasn't fair to Stan. I'm okay with Djokovic retiring. He gave it his best effort for 2 sets. Down 2 sets in a break, it's obvious that there's no way he's going to win, and he's only possibly going to hurt his body more. If Federer retired under similar conditions, I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't be mad. But I also don't think Roger Federer would have retired in the same conditions that Djokovic was in. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. It's just the way those dudes are. And finally, this was from Yahoo. Why don't people love Novak Djokovic? It's kind of like the video I wanted to make, but then I didn't make it because so many people were getting so fired up. Why do people hate Novak Djokovic? At 2 sets and a breakdown, 16-time Grand Slam champion Novak Djokovic retired through injury in his 4th round against Stanislav the Manislav Wawrinka at the U.S. Open this last week. He was immediately greeted by a chorus of boos from the Flushing Meadow crowd. It sounded like this. This is from last night's podcast.
I don't think, Patrick, you're going to be seeing Novak most, if not all, the rest of this year. We'll see. Doesn't deserve to get booed. No, definitely not. For sure. That's too bad. One of the ultimate competitors the game's ever seen. I mean, come on. Djokovic giving a thumbs up, taking a page out of the Medvedev book.
When Andy Murray almost retired at the Australian Open in tears earlier this year, he received a standing ovation. Well, yeah, because he was playing through the pain. Didn't he finish the match? Almost retired? What the heck is that? This is from Luke Bradshaw. He has the same last name as me. How shameful. Fans can handle Nadal's obsessive bottle arranging and fidgeting, but have issues with Djokovic's grass nibbling. Djokovic conducts himself professionally on and off the court, so why don't the fans love him? Most criticisms seem vague at best. He's too robotic. Everything is a bit forced. He comes across as fake. His on-court impressions of other players on tour seem to fall somewhere between mild entertainment and extreme annoyance. What? That was when people liked Djokovic. Don't forget, it was 11 years ago where the crowd first really turned on Djokovic, right here at the U.S. Open. I'm pointing at the TV where Bianca Andreescu took the first set 6-1 over Taylor Townsend. Why am I acting surprised? That's not surprising. The service impressions, people liked that about Djokovic. Maybe some people didn't like it, but most people thought, oh, that's kind of fun. Djokovic did the Medvedev move, and I don't fully blame Djokovic. He kind of felt betrayed by Andy Roddick. You know, they had been friendly. They did Arthur Ashe Kids Day together. And all of a sudden, Roddick is throwing him under the bus in front of the tennis media.
There's plenty of controversy after the match. Djokovic had a go at Andy Roddick, and he didn't seem to be too pleased with the crowd either.
Well, obviously, Andy was saying that I have 16 injuries on the last match, so obviously I don't, right?
Didn't look like it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like it or not, I mean, it's like that. So,
This crowd loves you. You could turn them against you real fast,
Well, I know they're already against me because they think I'm faking everything, so sorry.
Well, no.
But Djokovic embraced the villain role, just like we saw Medvedev do here on that night. And ever since then, it's just been worse and worse for Novak Djokovic. And of course, then he starts beating Roger and Rafa and messing up the rivalry for everyone. And we all, I don't need to chronicle all the little things that have happened over the years with Novak Djokovic on court. They go through some of the stuff from that podcast with Nick Kyrgios talking about how much the best line ever. Nick Kyrgios' greatest line of all time on Novak Djokovic. If I have a winning head-to-head against you, mate, you can't be the best. You can't be the greatest of all time. Simple as that. In the crowd, he gets less love. And online, he gets less love, too. According to Brandwatch, a study conducted from June to February 2018-2019, Djokovic had less total mentions across social media than his rivals. And here's the kicker, as well as more negative comments than them. 24% of all Djokovic mentions were negative. And then one last kick in the pants from Luke. It's possible that crowds could warm to him in some time. But the most likely outcome for Djokovic? He'll overtake Federer's Grand Slam total and garner even greater hate, only multiplied by Roger himself being incredibly gracious about the achievement, and the whole cycle repeats all over again. Okay, that's pretty funny. All I wanted to say, and hit the music because we're getting the heck out of here. Listen to this clip of Novak Djokovic making an excuse for why the audience would have booed him. I mean, there's no reason to hate Djokovic. They shouldn't have booed him. And I feel like Djokovic, deep down, is a pretty nice guy, despite what you may think about him. Take a listen to Novak Djokovic.
I'm sorry for the crowd. Obviously, they came to see a full match and just wasn't to be. That's all it is. I mean, a lot of people didn't know what's happening, so I cannot blame them, and it is what it is.
So there he is, turning the other cheek, saying, the crowd, they were booing. They probably didn't know that I was hurt. They didn't understand why the tennis was stopping. We'll be back tomorrow, late at night, again, after the Roger Federer and Grigor Dimitrov match. See ya!